Students, Jonah McDonald, Marley Farkas will introduce and thank our guest speaker, our guest speaker, Mr. Michael Thorbourne.
Okay, I'm like freaking out right now. Probably shouldn't have written this 2 days ago.
Good evening, grads, family, and friends. I'm Marley Farkas, and this is Jonah McDonald, and today we are here to introduce you the guest speaker for the grad class of 2018.
When our grad committee was asked to nominate someone for the guest speaker, Marley and I immediately thought that it needed to be Mr. Thorbourne. He has known many students for many years as he was a phys ed teacher at Westwood before coming to Artie Parker to teach grade 9 English, the same year that we got into grade 9.
Both of us were lucky enough to be placed into his class in grade 9, and I'm pretty sure he almost immediately became everyone's new favorite teacher. He made coming to class every day, all year, bearable for the most part, and he always made it fun to learn. Mr. Thorbourne has always gone above and beyond for many of his students. For example, writing me an amazing letter of recommendation for a scholarship the day it was due. I could honestly say he's one of my favorite people and one of my favorite teachers, and I know I'm not the only person in the room today that thinks that.
Not only has Mr. Thorbourne been an amazing teacher, he has also been an amazing coach. He's constantly going out of his way to recruit new grade 9 athletes or try and convince the same people to join track for the last 4 years. I was lucky enough to be one of the grade 9 recruitments that he had, for whatever reason, decided to put some faith into. But I've just recently learned that the only reason why was because Maddie and Logan refused to join track. So I was his last option. Mr. T has been able to provide athletes with techniques and training required for many of us to win medals at the MHSAA track provincials. And I would just like to point out that the throwers have way more medals than the runners, so they better step it up. Mr. T has the capability of having so many young people look up to him, and that's why I think he should be the guest speaker. And he's also pretty good at public speaking, unlike Marley and I.
He has helped so many of us become the people that we have become today, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Thorbourne as our guest speaker for the class of 2018.
No pressure there whatsoever, despite the fact that they stole large hunks of my introduction. So, as mentioned, I'm Michael Thorbourne. I'm a teacher at Artie Parker. I've been with the school district of Mystery Lake for 11 years. Some of you, the Westwood Slice that I see looking up at me, have been coming to school with me every day for 11 years. If it had been one of the Westwood kids that nominated me for this, I would have started worrying that it was Stockholm Syndrome more than anything I'd actually done. But since it was Jonna and Marley, we'll move on. I did have several other students, including some Westwood ones, come up and say that they wanted to nominate me, which meant a lot. I didn't know whether or not to believe it, because sometimes things just get said. I chose to for one specific reason. If they tried to nominate me and it was too late, that meant that Jonah McDonald had passed in some work early before she got out of grade 12, and I'm gonna go with believing that. I really struggled to narrow down my topic for this group. I know a lot of you very well. I know my Westwood kids, as has been mentioned. I've taught a lot of you in ELA and social studies over the years. Coached, as Jonna has mentioned, several sports. I think Matt Stewart completes my curling roster, leaving. And have the opportunity this year to work with another slice of students in my mature program, and you guys know how much you guys mean to me and how proud I am to have you up here. A few observations about this group so I can get everyone in the room, possibly where I am with regards to thinking about them. We have people here who are following their parents to university some to their parents' alma maters, and some of them into their parents' professions. We also have a person here who will be the very first person to graduate high school in his family, and I think that is equally as impressive. We have at least one student tonight who's graduating a full year early than what would be considered the normal timeline for graduation. I think at last count, we have 17 students who were out of high school at one point, came back, and made it in under that 20-year-old deadline when this is no longer an option. We have some people who have been fortunate enough to be raised in households and situations where you're still very wonderfully young and naive, and this next step seems almost overwhelming because it's going to mean leaving that support. We have those of you who I know have been raising yourself and your siblings for years, and some of you are a couple of years into already trying to be the best parents you can be. So again, a huge gap in the difference that we find. Some of you have already locked in what you're going to do for your career. Some of you have no clue. The last distinct difference I'll point out, and this is statistically proven, I believe, we have the greatest gap in height ever between two graduating males with Gabe D. and Tyler Monius. So I think that's important to recognize. As you would expect with a place as diverse as Thompson, we have a wide variety of experiences, talents, accomplishments, expectations, hopes, and goals. So with that, I just want to make a few quick points about perspective. Perspective is how you choose to view the world. Everything from globally involved issues to your self-image when you get up in the morning. It helps to shape the tone and the outcome of everything you do, and it's heavily under your control. That being said, it's heavily influenced by your peers, your surroundings, your upbringing, and any outside sources or media you choose to take in. If you practice, you can maintain positive perspective in everything you do, and that is a key to success. I'm going to bear with. Did you ever drown on dry land before? Holy smokes. Thank you for that quick break. The quick example I'm going to give of perspective is the public's perspective of youths or millennials. I'm sitting here looking at a group of people I know well. I Googled youth and millennials and hit news the other day. According to what I found, I should be expecting to find immature, irresponsible, entitled, lazy phone zombies who only take selfies, send snaps, post memes. They film themselves snorting cinnamons, sometimes condoms, and potentially maybe eating Tide Pods. That perspective would make me think that this group here is some kind of apocalyptic force that's going to finish off what's left of our society. I didn't buy it. I know these kids. Looking into it, there's only 1/1,000,000% of North American kids that actually ate a Tide Pod. That's reassuring, if anyone was going to. That stereotype leads to a negative perspective on a group that, if you look into the actual statistics, compared to people in the early 90s who were in high school, they smoke less, drink less, do less drugs, have less sex. This isn't a challenge, by the way. It's just statistical facts. They have safer sex. They're having less kids under the age of 20, and they're generally more informed and politically correct than any generation before. That's something that would make it seem crazy or hypocritical to write them off as being silly or eating laundry detergent. They don't always make it easy to see them in a positive light. We've watched them for the last 4 years dabbing, fidget spinning on end, chasing virtual Pokemon around when none of us could see them. They're not the most perfect group. Their age category suffers from obesity and distracted driving. Those are the two things you are actually doing worse. So we got to get those under control. But for a positive perspective, let's look at what these kids have accomplished in 4 years. I put forth that they've forged a lasting impression that future classes will need to work to keep up to. Our music students have traveled further away from home and yet continue to win more accolades everywhere they go. Our vocational students are developing new opportunities, professional partnerships, certifications, and are winning skills competitions. Our social, cultural, and humanitarian initiatives have thrived and grown. And in the gym, these kids walked in with one provincial banner hanging on the wall, and they're walking out with 6. So that's a pretty impressive statement there. To the grads, nearing the end, it is a rough world you're moving out into, but you are ready for it. Keeping a positive perspective is going to allow you, as others have mentioned, to be an agent for positive change. A few words of advice. Don't be defined by someone else's definition of you. Don't be convinced of something just because everyone else seems to be saying it. Don't be afraid to take a stand for what you believe in. In the words of musician Rob Flynn, don't let their fears make you afraid. Do approach challenges as opportunities. Do get involved in everything you can, your community, your family, your friendships. Be smart. Think about what's going to happen before you do things. We've been working on that one a long time. Be kind. It's free, it feels good, and every single one of you has it in you because I've personally experienced it. Your history is happening right now. Use your actions to shape it so that when you look back on it, you can do so with a positive perspective. Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you, Mr. Thorbourne.